This is a pretty interesting decision, I feel, that we're talking about these players. Mostly because when it comes to Anaheim Ducks topics, we don't normally go out there and talk about too much Ducks stuff. Now, we talked about Trevor Zegras and the entire Calder race last year. We talked about Jay Beagle and the fights that were going on in that sort of realm. And that was cool. But when it comes to the Anaheim Ducks, I feel like with the guys that are on the team already, we talked about Trevor Zegras, and we're also going to be talking about Jamie Drysdale in this video too. I feel like when it comes to what we saw at the 2022 World Juniors, especially for Team Canada, there's a lot more to be excited for when it comes to the future of the Anaheim Ducks. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to be talking too much about Mason McTavish, the guy who was the best forward at the World Juniors this previous season, and a player who is a Ducks prospect. Of course, the Anaheim Ducks are going out there and getting all the players that are doing well at these international tournaments, but we're also going to talk about Olen Zellweger. Because when it comes to being the most underrated, most undervalued player in his draft, man oh man, is Olen Zellweger really making a case at being just that. Now, part of the reason why Zellweger and Mason McTavish are in the news is because these guys are Anaheim Ducks prospects who had just absolutely dominated the World Juniors, and they both happen to be drafted in 2021, meaning that they do have an extra year's worth of eligibility for the World Junior Tournament in next year's January crop of play, but already in this season's worth of a tournament, they were fantastic. I wanted to talk about the defense today, so we're talking about Zellweger, and we're going to be talking about Jamie Drysdale, but let's just go over who exactly Olen Zellweger is, and why you need to pay attention to this player. Long story short, Zellweger is 18 turning 19 years old. He was one of the youngest players in the entire 2021 NHL Entry Draft, born on September 10th, 2003. Had he been born just a week later, he would have been eligible for the 2022 draft and drafted along all the other players that were selected, like Wright and Power, etc., etc. He's 5'10", 174 as a left-handed defenseman, and he was drafted straight out of the Everett Silvertip system in the WHL. Now, he had 13 points in 11 games played, which was a very small sample size because the WHL was not on for a good portion of the season, and he was over a point per game for Team Canada at the U18s. Now, back in this time frame, Olen Zellweger was seen by a lot of people as a guy that could have gone somewhere towards the end of the first round, maybe even somewhere in the middle of the second round. Let's take a look at the draft rankings from the time of the 2021 draft. Zellweger was ranked 28th by Elite Prospects, 26th by Future Considerations, 54th by Craig Button, 42nd by McKean's Hockey, 45th by Bob McKenzie, and he was also the 45th North American skater, ranked by NHL Central Scouting, which if you know how the NHL Central Scouting list works, you know that 45 on their list means that you're probably going to go somewhere in like the 60s or the 70s. Lo and behold, he was taken at the start of the second round by the Anaheim Ducks, 34th overall. This is the scouting report on the Elite Prospects website here. His posture is nearly perfect, with his hips tilted back, his chest over his knees, and the right shin angle. He collects passes and sends them in motion. He uses the dotted line through the neutral zone, and he even works in a little bit of deception from time to time to keep his opponents off balance. He'll immediately recognize any opportunity to lead the rush and take it. Mobility is the biggest selling point with Olen Zellweger, leveraging explosiveness to choke out attacks in the neutral zone and join the rush. Now, for Zellweger, it's really easy to go out there and say that, yeah, this guy had a pretty good profile, he was mobile, sure, he's kind of small, but he produced over a point per game in the WHL in the small sample size that he had. But when it came to Zellweger's draft plus 1 year, he absolutely exploded in the best way possible. Playing for Everett in 2021-22, he had 78 points in 55 games played, 14 goals, 64 assists, 9 points in 6 games in the playoffs, and he even played a game with the San Diego Gulls where he had 1 assist in the process. You go over to the WHL in its entirety of production from the early 2000s up until now, and Olen Zellweger has legitimately put up the best U19 points per game season out of everybody. There isn't a defenseman from 2000 until this season that has put up a higher points per game number than Olen Zellweger, all at 18 years old. This guy then suited up for Team Canada, the World Juniors, where he led the entire defensive class in assists and points. 2 goals, 9 assists for 11 points, 7 games played for Team Canada. He was named to the All-Star team, so that's pretty good. But unfortunately, he was not given the award for Best Defenseman at the tournament. That honor belonged to Kasper, who happens to be 20 years old, and he had a lot more goals than Zellweger did. Before we go over onto Jamie Drysdale, though, and talk about how these two guys could play together, let's talk about Zellweger and his Dobber Prospects report, because this is what it says on the fantasy summary right here. He's a puck-rushing defenseman with outstanding skating ability. His well-rounded game gives him potential as a top 4 D-man in the NHL. We also had ourselves a few more things that I thought were noteworthy. The fact that his 11 points in 7 games are the most ever by a U19 defenseman in a single World Junior Championship tournament ever. Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects cannot overstate just how good this kid is. Zellweger just had the best U19 defenseman productive season the World Juniors have ever seen. And if you go over to the World Juniors historical data and you see all the guys who are U19 as defenders who played in this tournament and who had themselves a whole bunch of points, Zellweger is indeed number 1 all time. Take a look at some of the guys that he has more points than. Erik Karlsson, who had gone first overall the previous year. Zach Werenski, Erik Karlsson, Jacob Trouba, Olli Juolevi. Amazing names right here. And so, of course, World Junior production for guys that are 18 years old, it's not really the most consistent thing, because it's not like you're seeing everybody who is amazing over here. Like, there's no Bobby York, Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar, or whatever, but, just seeing the historical data, it's pretty good. We also had Byron Bader, who had himself a report on Olen Zellweger saying that his entire tournament was great. He could possibly be a steal of a second-round pick by Anaheim, and the comparisons for him are pretty nutty, because you have guys like Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Dougie Hamilton, Aaron Ekblad as comparisons over here, not to mention Phil Housley, Morgan Riley. These are all top-of-the-line players, and Zellweger was a second-round pick just a year ago, so it's really amazing to see where his career has gone since then. Now, as for Jamie Drysdale, because I did say I wanted to talk about Drysdale too, Drysdale was eligible for this year's World Juniors, but he did not play. He turned 20 in April, and even though the World Juniors is technically a U20 tournament, this World Juniors was technically the one from January, just extended to a few months down the line, but still, Jamie Drysdale did not play. He is a 20-year-old guy, 5'11", 174 as a right-handed defenseman, and this is a brilliant skater right here. Capable of quarterbacking a power play with ease and generating results both ways through the neutral zone. More of a playmaker than a shooter, Drysdale is adaptable first and foremost. He's going to make the best decision regardless, no matter the situation. He's the only defenseman in this year's draft with clear number 1 defenseman upside. And last season he had 32 points in 81 games played for the Ducks. My fear is that the entire Pacific Division is going to see the wrath of Zellweger and Drysdale together for the next decade and a bit. Dude, you already had Drysdale, who was supposed to be a number 1 potential guy on your blue line doing these amazing things, and now you have Zellweger, who came out of nowhere from second-round pick to top WHL 18-year-old season in 20 years, as well as being the best 18-year-old defender the World Juniors has ever seen, points-wise. This is a pretty gosh darn good player over here, if I do say so myself. And I feel like I had to make this video because we cannot let stories like this go under our noses when players are coming out of nowhere and just showing off that their talents are so much more than we thought they were when they were initially drafted. And heck, when it comes to Anaheim, you could talk about Trevor Zegras. We'd talked about Zegras the entire year. The Calder race with Sider and Bunting and everything. That was a great race. But you still have Mason McTavish, who did go out there in this year's World Juniors and absolutely lit the tournament on fire as well. That guy was an absolute superstar. And so for Anaheim, y'all are good. You seem really, really good with the future. And I am kind of jealous because I want to see, my Vancouver Canucks get good defenseman prospects too. Oh man, I shouldn't have said that. Now I'm pretty sad, eh? Talk in the comments all your thoughts about Olen Zellweger and Jamie Drysdale. What do you think these guys could accomplish together as members of the Anaheim Ducks? Maybe on the same pair, maybe on the same power play, maybe on the same line? Who really knows? possibilities are endless at this point. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this Juraj 99. And bye.